Welcome back to another episode of When We're Not Hustling the After Party. Today we are talking about another Pittsburgh babe, because we have so many of them on the show and so many of them here. Josie Oakley, who is a Pittsburgh-based sex worker.
Hi, I'm Emily Foster. I'm the producer of When We're Not Hustling. This is the after party. Please like, subscribe, shout it from the rooftops, tell your mom, whatever you want to do. Just get the word out, would you?
And we have Emery Fields with us today.
Hi, I'm Emery Fields. I'm a male provider and a professional dancer, and so excited to be back.
People loved your episode, which is why we brought you back.
Oh, thank you. I had
we
so
also
much
like you, but our fans would like bringing you.
Oh, okay. Back by popular demand.
We talked to Josie about a couple of several things actually,
Yeah.
but it started out being about hosting sex parties, which was really like I've been to one of her sex parties, but it was also really interesting to me to hear like all the things that go into it from like the back end, like of organizing. And reminds me about like when sex workers say like, yes, we show up for 2 hours, but there's been like, tons of work that's happened behind the scenes. I mean, she kind of demystified that for throwing sex parties too, and that was really interesting to me.
Yeah. The work, a lot of it sounded so similar to bartending, which makes so much sense. And then also producing a music show. Like there was so many crossovers of that. Just I'm like, it's hosting a party. But what really, really struck me, because I'm one of those people that I don't necessarily get along with everyone. Definitely. There's definitely people that I irritate. I'm old enough to own that, but I have a lot of disparate groups of people that I interact with and very much love. And so I learned, I think when I was 13, that throwing a birthday party and inviting all those different people to be in the same place was only going to work if we were in public and they could bring whoever they wanted with them. So like after one failed birthday party, I have always thrown big public parties and like, for my birthday, we're going down to the bar, or I'm playing a show. You're welcome to come, and it's really easy and I could do it alone, but also everyone can show up if they want to, and you can bring whoever you want. But that really, she started talking about the social aspect of it, like inviting too many of this kind of person or not enough of this person. We wanted enough of the newbies and then enough of the people who are used to it, and making sure that there weren't relationships that were rubbing up against each other and that everyone's needs were going to be met and no one was going to spend the night irritated. And it's like, oh my God, I feel that so deeply. Like, it really resonated with that part.
It's so funny what she was talking about with like the sex party in particular, and especially bringing in a bunch of like women and femmes and non-binary people who maybe are the ones who are more used to being like passive, that like what would happen is that everybody that would get together would just like talk as if they were like, it was funny when she was like, they were literally talking about their cycles.
Right.
It's not working. Like
this is not working. We also need some people to start the sex. Like otherwise it's not a sex party. It's just us hanging out.
I got called out to be honest, because like I'm not a flirt, like at all. Like I'm not 30%. I never come on to anyone. I don't start things. Like you would have to like hit me over the head to like get something going. You'd have to be like, I want to sleep with you. Otherwise, I just don't like pick up on it. And part of it is that I've been partnered my whole life. Like I've been to 2 really long marriages, I think. And so I never did like the people I dated like fell in love with me and got married. Like, and there was no other people. And sex work is different because it's so contracted. Like I know exactly what's going to happen. So like that's a very easy, unambiguous thing. But like out in the wild, like forget it. I'd never get laid. Like unless people like tried very hard. And I think that it was interesting to hear that like I mean, I kind of know this, but it was interesting to hear her say that, like, this is not just a meat problem. This is like a socialized problem too, because once she like pulled the cis men out of the picture, who tend to be ones that like start that, then there was nobody to start anything. And that was kind of interesting to me. I'm curious, Emery, like what you
Hmm.
think as like a cis man, like about that. What you came away from that with.
I mean, I love the idea of no boys allowed party. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's amazing. I loved listening to this whole episode, like just that there's a space completely devoted to that. Like, of course, that makes so much sense and is
Mm-hmm.
so required. And as somebody who like grew up in a dance studio and grew up mostly around women, I am also more comfortable around women. So
Yeah.
even though that's a space where I'm not necessarily like welcome,
Yeah.
that sounds like the most amazing and most comfortable space I can possibly imagine. So I get it. I definitely get why that is a
Yeah.
thing. Men are scary. Yeah, I I love how intentional she is about the curation of it, especially
Mm-hmm.
the invite list. Like I loved what she was talking about with a quarter people new, a quarter people old, and then half people mixed.
Yeah.
I every once in a while like to put on little events like much smaller scale and not even sexy in any way, just
Yeah.
getting together for brunch or dinner or go
Sure.
see a show or whatnot. And even then, even when it's only 5 to 15 people, I am so stressed about the invite list and will these people get along?
Yeah.
And you know, when you get it right, it's so magical to watch
Yeah.
people from
Yeah.
different circles of your life connect and become friends independent of you. And then when you sometimes miss the mark, it's a little awkward. I'm like, oh, these people don't really have anything in common.
Yeah.
But I the whole time while I was listening was just imagining how stressed I would be with that length of list, and I'm so impressed and amazed and glad it's not me setting up those parties. Uh, I do much better when it's the smaller scale.
Me too.
Yeah, but I will gladly go and attend one of those larger parties, but I will not be the person setting it up.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah.
I thought one of the things that she said was so important. I remember when my older kids were teenagers, talking to them about this, because they would go to like, because what she said is like, when we think about safety, so like we're obviously thinking about like curating this like group of people. So that's one level. Then we're also thinking about like safety, and often when we're talking about sex parties for like, okay, there needs to be condoms and there needs to be like this and that. And what she said is like that I loved. This is what I tried to with my kids is they, like when they went to school, for example, and they were like they came home and they were like, oh, we did sex ed today, and I was like, oh, well, what did you learn in sex ed? And they were like, oh, well, they learned basics of reproduction and STI and pregnancy, like litigation or whatever. And I was like, okay, that's actually not the most important thing. Those things are like easy. That's the easy. And even if you have like and not to say that like STIs or pregnancy are a big deal, they're obviously a big deal, but you can also like handle those. There are ways to like handle those. Like, and what she said is like, okay, so let's say there's a herpes outbreak. Oh, well, we'll take dog tracks and everybody will just move on with their lives. Like,
Hmm.
80% of adults have herpes anyways. Like, whatever. It's fine. I think that's like, not, and she didn't even say that frequently, but what she was saying is that like, the more important thing is that like, you can't take dog tracks to like, make people like get over feeling like they're bound
Hmm.
or like
Yeah.
the something happened there that made them feel uncomfortable or that those things are actually the things that we need to care about. What I told my kids is like, that's great that they told you all those things. Those are things you can read in your book. What you really need to think about when you're thinking about entering into like sexual relationships is what sort of like emotion and like I am pro like exploring a lot of different things, going to those parties, doing like having different types of experiences, having different experiences with a lot of different people. Like all of that can be beautiful, and it can also be really difficult. So like figuring out how to like deal with that too. And I was really happy that she like touched on that, touched on like what do you do when people leave feeling a type of way. And obviously like a curator of a party or like the host of a party can't control those.
Yeah, I feel like it takes a lot of trust in the people that you're inviting. And again, going back to the curation of that invitation list, and must be so scary to invite these people and then kind of release some of that control, like knowing that you can't have your
Right.
hand on every single interaction that happens there. And I mean, I know there's a lot of things that she talked about that they do in preparation in terms of the talks that you have beforehand and the agreements that are made. But still, the whole situation just requires so much trust with a capital T and 3 exclamation points.
Yeah.
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 Incredible.
Yeah. And I thought that there was something really interesting that was worthwhile, but for all things, not just for sex parties, where she was like, yes, you like giving up that control is also like, where do we want to put our like time and energy? Do we want to put our time and energy into controlling people's behavior, or do we want to put our time and energy into figuring out how to like rebuild and restore like relationships when they've been like severed, since we can't control for those things? And um, looking at sex parties from like a restorative justice lens was not where I thought the conversation was going.
Right.
But I was also like so grateful for that lens through which to look at it.
Yeah. No, I mean, you just, oh, no boys allowed sex party. You're like, oh, fluffy. It was not. No, it brought up some very real. I think the most powerful thing for me was this is going to sound off topic, but I promise it's not. One of the most like impactful things that I've been able to do just as a human being is go, God, I'm really racist. Like, wow, not intentionally, like, geez, but like, wow, just being raised in this world, like, and when she was like, yeah, I'm a sexual offender. Yeah, I've crossed boundaries. Like, yeah, not like a jerk, but I still did it. And it hit in that similar place. I was like, well, so am I.
Yeah,
I've definitely found out after the fact, like, oh, I didn't really want to do that, but I did that, and and repair is often easy coming from that place of being able to talk about it, but the ones I don't know about are just wandering around out there, and like we really have well, you did that, it's over. Right? Like kind of thing that we love to do with people, but really that's kind of a myth, because it's not you did that and now it's over. What it really is I'm looking at you, Harvey Weinstein. You did this. You said it wasn't a big deal. You gaslit everybody, and then you told them to fuck off. Because all the times that people did that and then said, oh, shit, I am so, whoa, that's not where that was coming from. Here's where and that conversation happened. Then like repair in a really, really cool way happened and kept going forward. So like, just like went over a whole bunch of crap there, but it hit a lot of different places for me, like hearing someone just openly say that, and I was like, why is this so not just okay, but kind of like great that she's saying that? But because I already named him, if Harvey Weinstein came out and said that, I'd be like, too little too late, gross, ew, like totally different things going on there. And it really made me like open up and start looking at all that stuff. And it was, so for me, I came away from that being like, it seems like with something as intimate and just raw as sex ends up being, not being able, like mistakes are going to happen, right? But also, it isn't just you fuck up and it's done. it's like then you keep going and you're like,
Right.
oh shit, mistakes were made. We need to bring this up and talk about how we can get this going
Right.
again, even though.
Like a sexuality and our desirability. Yeah. And like all of these things are so tied into like how we think about ourselves that sometimes we can't like look past that to let like
Yeah.
to what is like how am I impacting this other, like person in a way that might like how am I showing up
And
in a
like
way that's not good, and
post nut clarity is real.
yeah.
And that confusion beforehand is real too. Like the body wants what it wants. And the minute it's over, you're like, oh, well, that got weird. Like, like they're really, and all of that, it just, I don't know, there was something so, it's not just like hopeful, but something like, oh, wow, that's like an essential part that no one ever just said out loud.
Yeah.
That like,
Like, like the hope is that we can have those sorts of conversations with
yeah,
canceling someone and
yeah,
like, saying like, how is it that we all like, I think that the racism example that you gave isn't like too far afield because the question then is like, how do we talk about how we show up in ways that are like can be harmful? How do we
yeah,
like work to like do that and try to figure out how to show up better for people? And I think that and some of it's not even like us. I mean, in the sense that like people have triggers that maybe we're not
sure.
aware of, that we can hit up against and sexual.
I'm from California. Dude just fucking finds its way into my language.
Yeah.
And there are some amazing trans friends that I
Yeah.
have had moments of just hurt because I had California and Hawaii dude. And like, that's not their fault. And it's,
Yeah.
like also, I'm not, I'm not calling you anything. I'm
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
water faucet was dude yesterday. I don't think it has a gender, but
Yeah.
but the being able to have that conversation, right? Like, oh, that just slipped out. Whoops. Like, yeah, wow, let's back that one up, So sorry. That's trained societally. Don't want to be like that. How can I help repair this, right? Like, that's actually where it goes. It
Yeah.
doesn't go to instant canceling. I think
Right.
the whole concept of canceling is like actually just getting fed up with
Yeah.
trying to trying to have that conversation, like,
Well, because I
hey,
mean,
dude, that you crossed boundaries. Go to hell. That never happened. Money, money, money. Shh. It's like,
Yeah.
if I encounter that 20 times, I'm gonna be like, you know what? No more of you.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas it's totally different when it comes with self-awareness and, that
Yeah.
kind of ownership of what happened and the when you can see the self-reflection and the willingness to change and to learn. And that's I thought it was so brave and beautiful when she said that she was a consent violator and that she has learned from that and has kind of re-examined how she approaches those situations for so many reasons, but also in a broader sense that sometimes it's easy people in those positions. It's easy for us to just kind of assume that they have it figured out.
right.
Like, oh, this person is
Right.
organizing a sex party, so they have everything related to that completely figured out. Their politics and their personal views are 100% a-okay. And so it was also just a nice reminder that everybody's human. Everybody's human. Everyone's trying to figure out these same things. Everyone's failing and trying to do better in the exact same ways that you are. I mean, yeah, everyone has a different amount of exposure and a different amount of work that they've already done. But
Right.
yeah, I thought it was on so many levels so nice to hear, and also
Yeah.
so brave. I don't know if I could have said that on a podcast that I was recording. Like, really incredible. I was just
And
amazed with Josie. So
I had the same thought. Like, I thought as soon as she said that, like, I started to interrogate my past
mhm.
and thought about, like, experiences that I've had that I left feeling like, oh, I wish I didn't do things like
Yeah.
this, you know? And had the same thought of, like, oh, damn, I think I am too. Would I have said that? Like, you know? And that's, you know, that's a really great
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah. And and you know, not only did she say like some you know, she went like so far as to say to separate out the ones that were like, oh, I just misread the situation. I'm like, actually I've done things that were really like inexcusable. And
Right.
some of them that like I just misread, you know, and so like taking like that level of ownership was really like beautiful. I
Yeah. No, I mean, there, it's, you're right. You're right. It is a lot like the racism thing, right?
Mhm.
Because at first, like, everything in us is like, oh, well, we can't admit to that. That's the bad thing.
Mhm.
And then you're like, yeah, but it's inescapable. Like, I have a white face. I grew up in this society, and like, how
Mhm.
long until I saw a black doll or
Mhm.
a superhero that, like, I think it was like 2 years ago we saw in America big superheroes that were,
Mhm.
from India. Like, and just like, how could I not be, right? And I was also raised in the 90s. Talk about a time that did not talk about consent or how to fucking
Mhm.
deal with it,
Mhm.
ever, any
Mhm.
of it. And
Right.
like, now, and sitting here in 2024 in a 49-year-old body and mind, I can be like, yeah, so if someone says I don't really want to do that, the thing to say isn't, are you sure? Like, but
Yeah.
when I was 30 in 2001, I don't know that I knew that,
Yeah.
like, and I was a fully grown adult and I had every belief in me that sometimes that was kind of sexy though, right? Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
well, are
Mhm.
you sure? Like, I'm the girl part. I'm the one that's supposed to be reluctant. So, me being, it's so
Totally.
messy. But I
Yeah.
can look at that very clearly right now and go, like, nope, that was that was
Mhm.
crossing a clearly stated boundary. That's a shitty thing to do to someone, and like, doesn't matter what happened after that. As soon as you said anything except, oh, okay,
Yeah.
you're a problem. But I didn't understand that. I
Yeah.
did not understand that. And I apologize to anyone listening for whom we have not had that conversation. You
Yeah.
can reach out to me. I'm on all social platforms. I'm very open minded and I am a fuck up kind of a person now. So, like, I'm willing to hear it. But, I have a lot. I think there would be, I don't want to solve society's problems. And obviously, there's things that would take precedence over this. But, like, societally, I feel like it would just be a lot easier if we were all like, yeah, so humans fuck shit up. And
Mhm.
I'm a human. So
Mhm.
I'm clearly a fuck up. Here's how I'm working on it. You
Yeah.
have any suggestions on how to
Mhm.
work it out better?
Yeah.
As soon as I started like saying that and being like forgiving himself, like, I'm pretty racist, need to like work on that, and I said, well, one of my biggest problems is I can't tell black faces apart. Really great with Pacific Islanders, grew up in Hawaii, but
Mhm.
it's black people. I'm like, I've made some horrific confusions. Like, so I started watching television shows with predominantly black casts, and now I can tell the difference between some people that I should have been able to tell the difference to. And it turns out it was just exposure. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
well, what was I missing? Exposure. Okay, well, I'll do more of this.
Mhm.
Completely out there with this, but you know
I
what?
was watching 90 Day Fiance the other way the other day because I'm always watching the show, and it was really funny to see Asian people when like a white guy came in and they were like, I don't know the guys. They all look the same.
Oof. Oof.
And people are looking this.
Yeah, and we do. I mean, have you seen the Bachelor lineup? That is the same person.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, I think. I've been thinking a lot about not just about consent or about things like this, but just in general that there's something in terms of like conflict resolution or relationship building or that often I think what we all want to hear from people who we feel like wronged by is like, I understand why you feel that way. You want to
Mm,
hear like validation. And there's something about like our ego that wants to defend ourselves against whatever that thing is. And you can't, and this is something I should say that I'm actively working on. It's not something I'm good at, but like, um, but you can't argue somebody out of their feelings. And when they're
mm.
saying, I'm feeling this way, it is not helpful at all to say, but you shouldn't because that's not what I meant. Like,
Yep.
I'm like, what? That's, why would you think that? Blah, 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 blah. Just to instead, like, not defend yourself because I have a couple of philosophy degrees. I am like argumentative, in this, like, I've been trained to defend, like, my position, like, when why I think something like this has been like, as a writer, I'm always making a point, like, it's not, I don't just like describe things. I'm trying to like make a point, and so it's hard for me not to try to like hang on to what the intent was, why
Mhm.
I'm justified in doing what I did, why it makes sense in context, giving like, well, you would understand this better if you understood this context, and blah blah blah. And instead of just be like, oh, this is stupid. Like, we're going nowhere here.
Mhm.
What you want to hear is, I'm sorry I hurt your
No.
feelings.
Yeah, that's such a game changer. Realizing that every single feeling is valid, just
Mm-hmm,
period. If we can
mm-hmm,
start there, great. Like, you can't argue someone out of a feeling. If they're feeling something, it's automatically valid. And
yeah.
then if you can just accept that and acknowledge it, then we can actually start to do the work of, well, why are you feeling this thing? Is it because of X or because of Z, or is it like actually because of this completely other different reason that
Mm-hmm,
seems unrelated, but actually in this roundabout way.
yeah.
But yeah, you're not going to get anywhere if you're saying no, you're wrong for feeling this thing. That's
Yeah.
never a
No, that's a
statement that belongs.
non-starter.
Yeah.
Oh,
And I have to admit that I have caught myself saying, this is very embarrassing because it's the worst possible response. Validate something I don't agree
Hmm.
with. I
oh
can't
my
give that
gosh.
to you because you're wrong. And then
Hmm.
I'm like, no,
Right.
wait, this is like gonna quickly go. This
Hmm.
whole thing. Like, because you're not validating that somebody's right.
Right.
Like, that's the wrong way to think about
No.
it.
And I
You're,
want to be really careful to explicitly state I am not comparing full grown adult relationships to toddlers. But I have a toddler in my life and talk about concentrated humanity, right? Like they don't give a fuck about societal norms. They don't even understand them yet. They are just raw humanity. And it has really helped my adult relationships to be reminded so strongly like, obviously, she can't touch her own poop. Let's just go with something very clear and under big. Like, no one's going to argue about that.
Hmm.
But her feeling that I am controlling her and holding her down is real. I
mm-hmm,
am.
mm-hmm,
We all, as adults, understand why.
mm-hmm,
Like, we understand that a human being running around with feces on them is bad, and we don't
mm-hmm,
need that. That's not helpful
mm-hmm.
for our health. But I have to acknowledge the fact that this whole human being is being held against their will and forced into an experience they are not enjoying.
Yeah.
And I don't have to change that. I probably shouldn't. but, but I do have to acknowledge that for our shared experience to go forward better. And as soon as I'm
Mm-hmm,
able to go, oh, honey, it's so hard, isn't it? Like, oh, it's so hard. Let's do anything to distract ourselves, And
mm-hmm.
she's kind of done with it then. And then she's like, oh, okay, well, now I'm not so mad about this. And I'm like, it has really helped me remember in all of my adult relationships, like, it doesn't matter if what he is, and it's sorry, Ben, I love you. I love my husband. But it doesn't matter. if I think he's dumb. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I think that his feeling is overwrought and boring. It doesn't matter if I think that the child is stupid for feeling like she wants to move right now. My job is to say, oh my God, that's got to be difficult. I am so sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's my whole job. And then we can move on from that point. Like,
I don't know why, but that feels so.
it is. No, it really is. It is. And that's
Like,
why I think it took the extreme of a baby who I forgive so much more than adults, which really isn't that fair, to be totally honest. All of us have like a little more than a baby, but not much, to really drive that home for me.
yeah.
And be like, you know what? And I don't think that any of my husband's feelings are as stupid as wanting to touch your own poop. But there are times when I'm mad at him that it feels that way for me. And those feelings are also valid. And I have to just say, oh, gosh, that's got to be hard. And let's move forward from that point. It's so petty. I hope he doesn't listen to this episode.
It's such a hard moment. It's so hard to think that we could be wrong in those moments, like especially when we just feel so confident and the other person has such a polarizing opposite view from us. I, for so many years now, have kind of leaned on this idea of remembering all of the crazy nonsense that I used to believe. Especially when I think about religious views that young Emery used to hold. I'm like, I used to believe that with 100% certainty that, like, yes, that is the truth. And then it becomes a little easier. You know what?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong about this.
Yeah.
That's very possible. You know, there is at least a 1% chance that I might be totally wrong about this. Yeah. That makes it a little bit easier.
I got it from a programmer friend. And he said, you know, I wrote this small line of code. It was very small. I knew exactly what it was supposed to do. It was so simple. I wrote it. I've done it 100 times. I wrote it and it didn't run right. And I sat there and I said, but I just wrote it and I wrote it right. And I went back and I looked at what I wrote and it was wrong. And I'm like, if I could be wrong about that, imagine what I'm wrong about all day. Like, I know. And, you know, and I imagine like spelling the word height. I do it 20,000 times. I know I've printed something with it wrong. It's just going to happen. You know, you can ask Jessie. Typos on things that we publish are not a one-off. I'm a writer. I win the New York Times word games. It's not like I don't know how to use the words, but like, we're wrong a lot. And learning how to just say, gosh, that must be hard to feel things. And I probably was wrong. Are really, really awesome skills to develop.
Yep. It all comes back to self-awareness, you know. Self-awareness is one of the most attractive qualities a person can have.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's
it
true.
Really is.
Yeah. And that's also a good note to end on. And one of the things that I think was so great about Josie's episode is that she like demonstrated a great self-awareness.
So much so.
Yeah. All right. So go if you haven't yet, please go listen to Josie Oakley's episode. Parties and also so many other things like eating snacks in bed, which goes back to the episode from last week. But we will let you go listen to that.
Hey, I'm Emily Foster. I am the producer of When We're Not Hustling. This is the after party. We'd like you to like, subscribe, share, tell all your friends about it. You could even write a letter and snail mail it if you want to. I'm down.
I'm Emery Fields. Thanks for joining us at the after party.